So let me share a story with you that might make you think, Lisa, I think you have a guardian angel. And also, it explains my thinking around the buying versus renting scenario when I'm 59 years old. Hi, my name is Lisa, and welcome to the channel. So I need to take you back about 25 years. My husband and I, we had bought a home and things were going okay. The market actually exploded afterward, artificially, by the way. So there was a whole lot of equity in that house that we had not counted on. So that was a bonus. What we also did was get into a lot of debt. Buying things we didn't need. Hindsight is always 2020. But what our banker suggested we do is refinance and use that equity in the home in order to pay off all that consumer debt and just have one payment. At the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. And had my husband and I stayed together and continued on this path, it would have been the right thing to do. What we didn't know is two things. One, the market would completely crash. We ended up owing more on that house than what it was worth. And also, we divorced. So, after only making these inflated payments for a couple of years, he ended up moving out, getting into a place of his own, and he was only working part time. So, he could not afford to be helping out with these inflated payments. I stayed in the house. And so I took on those inflated payments. And let me tell you, it was a struggle. So I was trying desperately to get out of this house. But like I said, the house was worth less than what we owed on it. So I needed to stay in that house long enough for the market to balance itself out. So the house had to be worth what I owed or what I was able to pay down on for it anyway. And as soon as I could get to like a zero, then I was out, right? I did not want to take a loss on the place. But because we didn't have a lot of disposable income at the time, house renovations were not something that we were keeping up with, and it showed. So the idea of trying to sell that house at the time would not have worked out so well either. And this is when the guardian angel comes in. One night, my son was using the upstairs washroom and flushed the toilet and went to bed. The next morning, when I got out of bed, I put my feet down into the carpet and felt squish. What had happened was the perfect storm. It wasn't the tank going and going and going. We would have heard that in the night. It was the actual bowl itself. There was some kind of mechanism in there that didn't click off. And the plumber said this happens every once in a while, and it is the perfect storm. And this happened to be on a weekend, so we were sleeping in as well. So that toilet had seeped for probably about 10 hours. So the place was a disaster. I remember phoning my friend and saying, "Hey, can I borrow your shop vac?" And when I explained to him what happened, he goes, Lisa, I think you need more than a shop vac. So I thought, oh my goodness, what else could go wrong? But honestly, this was a blessing in disguise because then insurance got involved and they assessed that it was an absolute disaster. So what they needed to do is take a whole bunch of the house down to its studs in order to prevent any sort of black mold, that sort of thing. And honestly, guys, like it was the best thing because a lot of the house, not all of it, but a lot of the house got a complete remodel. And because of that, I was able to sell that house really quickly. I actually made a few $1,000s extra, nothing major, but at least I was out. And this is why I think I have a guardian angel because my father had passed away in 2000. Maybe he had a hand in it. I don't know. But I do know that without this happening, without that seeping toilet, I would have been stuck in that house for I don't know how much longer. And it was a feeling of being trapped that I never, ever want to feel again. So it makes me a little leery to buy again. And since I have discovered that I can actually buy again, it's been heavy on my mind. At one point, I didn't think I could. I was told by bankers and mortgage brokers alike that because I was fully retired and not bringing in an income anymore other than what I paid myself out of my portfolio, that I would not be eligible. They even told me to get a job at McDonald's just to show that I had some sort of income. I look after my grandchildren, so that is my, volunteer work, and I do not want to give that up in order to get a part-time job. And so I've been renting for many years here, and I've learned a lot about what I do and do not want in a place, where I do and do not want to live. So I haven't seen the renting as a waste of money at all. It's allowed me to have flexibility in my life, to travel, to do research. And I've learned that I actually like living in condos. At one point, 5, 6 years ago, I would have never told you I wanted to live in a condo, but I've learned that I actually like it. I like the flexibility of it. I like the sense of community when we all kind of live under the same roof. I like the amenities that it offers, like the exercise room and the saunas and the steam rooms and the activity rooms in which we could actually even sign it out and then use it as a big group gathering, or my family could use it as a place to hang out and have a big fun meal one day. I like that these places tend to be quite close to trails and parks and swimming pools and things like that. And another thing is I don't feel trapped, because if for some reason I don't like living there or my life circumstances have changed, at the end of my lease, I'm out, and, no harm, no foul. It's so much easier to pick up and go than it would be when you're kind of chained to a mortgage and chained to that piece of land. Another big aspect that I really appreciated about renting was I wasn't responsible for maintenance or repairs. So, for example, one day my fridge just decided to die. So I just make a phone call, say, hey, the fridge is dead. They're like, "Oh, we're so sorry." And next day, I have a brand new fridge and I did not have to pay a cent for it. Now, that being said, I do know that there are some landlords out there who are less than accommodating. And I have to admit, I have been very lucky with the landlords I've had. They have all been just amazing, responsive, kind, understanding, and have made my experiences very positive. So honestly, I do not mind renting. I've actually quite enjoyed the experience. There's a lot of advantages to it. But since I have sat down with a different mortgage broker and he assured me that I have options, that I actually could buy and have a place of my own. Now this has planted a seed and I'm doing the research and trying to figure this out. Do I want to rent for the rest of my life? Frankly, what this has done is allowed me to say, okay, the renting has given me the opportunity to do this research. Over this last 6 years of me renting, it's given me the opportunity to, do the stuff that I wanted to do and travel and so forth. But it's also given me the opportunity to figure out, where do I want to live? Where do I actually want to put down roots? And also, what kind of lifestyle do I actually want? So because I have this information now I am thinking, well, maybe I do want to buy, but at this age, does it make sense? So I started doing my research and watching, I don't even know how many videos at this point, talking about the different options and how the market has really, really changed. I've run the numbers. I can't tell you how many times. I found that buy versus rent calculator, and over and over and over again, like, what is my best path at this point of my life? And you know what? I came up with a conclusion as to what's best, buy or rent. Ready for it? It depends. Honestly, what I've learned in the overall big picture is it really depends on where you are planning to buy. So, if the housing market is super expensive, then you're probably better off renting. It depends on how long you want to stay there. If you're not planning to live in that area for more than 5 years, then renting makes way more sense. And in fact, there's a lot of information out there that's informing people to get a lower rent and take that difference as to what you would have put into a mortgage and invest that money in the stock market. And being someone who's retired because of the stock market, I appreciate that advice. So, with that being said, you would think I would say, okay, here it is, I'm going to rent. But another issue, if your rent is about the same as your mortgage in terms of monthly costs, and you are planning to stay in that one spot for 5, 10, 15 years, then the numbers start working in favor of actually buying a property. So for me personally, I live in an area of Canada that it makes sense to buy something because I'm not in Toronto or Vancouver where the cost of buying, let's say, a condo is enormous compared to what it would be to rent one. I live in an area where once you run the numbers, then my mortgage payment and my HOA together and my taxes would be very similar to what my rent would be. And also our interest rates are around 4 to 4.5% right now. So that's quite doable. And if I should buy, I would not see this property as an investment. I wouldn't see it as something that's going to build a whole lot of equity for me that I could, sell and then that's my retirement fund. I'm already in retirement. What I want to do instead is put myself in a home in which I'm going to stay for many, many years to come, and that eventually I'll have to pay less for that same home. Because this is the scenario that scares me, is that if I continue to pay rent, then those rents keep going up, right? And what scares me is I see myself at 70 years old now paying $3,000, $4,000 a month for rent. And when I figured out what my CPP, my Canada Pension Plan is, and my old age security is going to be, I realized that those two numbers, as good as they will be, are not going to cover my housing costs. And if I'm being honest, I also want to preserve my portfolio as much as possible as well. And if I'm getting personal here, a psychological reason as to why I do want to actually own a place of my own is because on December 25th, Christmas Day of 2019, my ex husband, not the father of my children, I did remarry 6 years after he and I split. I remarried. And 3 years later, on Christmas Day, my ex, my husband at the time, told me that I needed to pack my stuff up and get out. So I spent all of Christmas Day packing up whatever I could into my little Kia Sorento. And my mother was with me at the time. She was into about mid-stage Alzheimer's at that point. So she was very confused and she could obviously feel the stress that I was undergoing. And so she was, stressed out as well and constantly asking questions. So I was trying to calm her down, playing cards, things like that, in order to try to normalize the day as much as I could. But it was very traumatic. Basically, I got booted out of my own home. I did go back for a short time because, when your marriage is on the rocks, you try to do what you can in order to make things work. But I was there for just a short time, and that was the end of that. And in full transparency, this was his land that we had built this home on, and he had protected his land with a postnuptial agreement that we did. He protected his land, I protected my pension, and so he was kind of like strapped to that land where I was the one with the flexibility to leave. Another argument for investments. That experience has given me a bit of a psychological scar here in which I don't want to be in a situation in which anyone can ever take my home away from me again. Although I have reservations about getting into the commitment of a mortgage and a home because of the first experience I shared, I also have that pull of having something that is mine and that nobody can take away from me. So, with all of this being said, what do I plan to do? On paper, it makes total sense to get into a place such as the one I'm in right now, which is a little small, but I enjoy it. I like it. And the rent is very reasonable. And then take the money that I'm saving from a larger rental cost or what a mortgage could be and use that money to invest. And that's what a lot of the gurus are out there are telling the young people to do. And if I were 25, I would probably take that advice. But at this stage in my life, at 59, I have a different look at it now. I've discovered where I want to actually spend the next 20, 30 years of my life. I have discovered how I want my lifestyle to look, and I have a very good idea of what my finances are. And now, armed with that information, I can now confidently go looking for a place that is going to meet all of those requirements. And I know that buying a condo does come with some risks. I know that there are scary stories out there about $25,000 bills due to special assessments. And I also know that I need to be in the financial situation in which I can afford to put down a 20% down payment, plus cover closing costs, plus have a bit of a cash reserve, because home ownership still includes having those expenses like appliances breaking or any kind of renovations or any kind of repairs. So having that 1 to 3% of your mortgage being put aside every year for that special fund is a really good idea. And if you don't have to use it, then hey, that could be another cruise. But it's my hope and my plan that once this mortgage is over, then my housing costs are basically minimized. So, yes, I would still have an HOA to pay for, which includes the water and the heat. I would have to pay for my own electricity, my own cable, internet, phone, that sort of thing. But I'm still minimizing the monthly housing costs. And they would be nowhere near the $3,000 to $4,000 a month that I would have to pay if I was renting somewhere. And here's another consideration. Some of the condos are quite a bit more expensive just because of the area in which they were in. There's one condo in particular that I'm looking at, but it has more of a country kind of setting. And so it's not as appealing to everybody else, but it would be appealing to me. And it's closer to my kids. And honestly, it's $100,000 less than the other condo I was looking at for the same amount of square footage. So I have to figure that one out in my head. But even getting into something like that and then using a little bit of the saved money to do some renos to really make the place my own and then put the saved money back into the stock market, oh my goodness, that would totally be a win-win on so many levels. So with all this being said, why don't I go out and buy now? Well, I'm not quite ready yet. I did not realize that I could buy. So I've been traveling and so forth. So I need to get rid of my debt. I need to be debt free before I do this. And I also need to build up that down payment. But what I have done is actually opened up a FHSA, a first home savings account. I attached it to my bank that all my YouTube earnings goes directly into. So this is my new goal is I'm going to use my YouTube earnings to build up this down payment. If you've ever thought about, I want to start a YouTube channel of my own, let that be inspiration for you because here's something else. It's because of the YouTube earnings that I could qualify. The problem was I was totally living on the income from my portfolio. I made the mistake of thinking because I have this portfolio that the banks would say, "Oh yeah, she's good for it. Let's give her the mortgage." No, they don't do that. They want to see that you have some kind of income. And who knew that YouTube would qualify as income? So they said, "Come and talk to us when you've got a year of consistent income from YouTube and you will qualify." Woo! So let that sink in and let that be inspiration for you to start your own channel. And back to the FHSA, I had no idea I would qualify for this because I was a homeowner many times over in the past. But here's the thing. If you have not been in a home that you own for at least 4 years, and with the story I told you, I definitely qualify for that, then you qualify for this. So how this works is you can put money into this account, in which case it will be invested. So hopefully that money is going to be working for you. And you can put in up to $8,000 per year, up to a $40,000 limit. I was thinking, what happens because it's already August and I'm going to just start putting money in? And they say, what you can do is if you don't hit the $8,000 limit this year, you can carry it over so that you just make extra payments in the next year. So I can top it up to $16,000 by the end of 2027. Also, let's say I decide against this and I want to use this money for something else. I don't want to buy after all. Then I can roll that $40,000, if that's what I've been able to save, into, let's say, an RRSP, or I can actually take it out as cash. It will be considered taxable income, but then I can use it any way I want. So I was a little afraid that it would get locked down, but apparently that's not the case. Again, another example of being afraid of being trapped into something. So I think the bottom line is when we come back full circle to this buy versus rent question, what I've learned is so many variables are involved depending on your particular situation, where you live, what the market's all about, what's your lifestyle. And if you want the freedom to keep moving and you know you won't be in that one place for longer than 5 years, then probably renting and then using the extra money to invest would probably be the right scenario. But if you know that you have found the area that you genuinely want to put down roots and you're going to stay there for 10, 15, 20 years, then the math says that buying actually works out. And over these past 6 years, renting has been an absolutely fabulous experience for me. I've learned so much, but I think I'm to that point at this stage of my life that I am ready to put down some roots. So opening that FHSA was the first step toward that. And I'm really excited for doing some shopping. It's not going to be tomorrow, might be next year, maybe the year after that, who knows. But at least I know the option is there, and it's a very exciting proposition. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and that it has given you 1 or 2 points just to kind of think about and mull over. And if it has, please consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribing, because it really does help channels like mine. In the meantime, have a wonderful day.